it's easy to explain enmeshment in one sense, it's actually very difficult because most enmeshed families don't see themselves as unhealthy. In fact, they think that they're very healthy, and they think their over-involvement with each other is because they love each other so much. And so the argument is, how can you say it's wrong to have so much love or too much love? And then secondly, the parents, and often they do this subconsciously with good intentions, they go, we don't want our kids getting involved in gangs and in the wrong group of friends, so we want home to feel like it's their gang. So they're not going to be as subject to peer pressure, so we're going to do everything constantly together as a family. So that is what makes it difficult. And so if you're listening to this and you have an enmeshed family, you might not even see it. And what I say, you might struggle with. But for those of you who grew up in an enmeshed family, you might look back now based on what I'm going to say and say, yes, I see now how unhealthy that was, even though it felt very healthy. So let me begin to go through what marks an enmeshed family, characteristics. So first of all, boundaries are not healthy. So there's a lack of emotional boundaries and physical boundaries. That means there's an over-involvement in the child's life. So the challenge in every family, becoming a healthy family, is how much is the child an individual and how much are they part of a group? When do you allow them to be themselves and meet their own needs and stand up for themselves? And when do they put aside their needs to meet the family's needs? That's the challenge. When do you let the child struggle with problems and live with the consequences of bad decisions? And when do you give them space to fail and all of those things? Or when do you jump in to fix them and help them and take care of them? Those are the challenges in every family, and there's a fine line between what's healthy and going too far. And so what we're looking at is the boundaries are too far, and that there's an over-involvement. So there's an over-involvement in the child's relationships, wanting to be there when they're playing with their friends, wanting to be there when they're doing different activities, not just to support them, but just to be involved in it, and some control is there. And if they've got a problem, to rush in to fix them and help them and all of those things. That's kind of the over-involvement. Now, hopefully this will get more and more clear as I go along. So in an enmeshed family, the child is not allowed to think about what's best for them or what they want. They're focused on or made to focus on what is best for everybody and what do they want. So the balance between the child's individuality and the group gets out of balance, and the child's needs don't matter as much as the group. It's not a 50-50 where you gotta give and take. It's the group matters most of all. And so then, when a child makes decisions to help with a family member, it's not because they freely want to help. It's because if they don't, they're going to be made to feel guilty. And it's a very subtle guilt that they will feel. And so as a result of that, the child then feels responsible for everybody else's happiness and well-being, as if they must make sure everybody is happy. And a child is afraid to say no because people will be upset with them, and so they avoid conflict. They're people pleasers. They give in to what the family wants, and they put down their needs and their desires. They suppress them in light of the family, out of balance. The next one is If you were to say, now let's say as an adult, your mom wants to call you every day, and you say, Mom, I'm just going to call you once a week. You try to create some distance or less contact. You would be made to feel very guilty that you're not a good daughter or son. Or if you want to spend your holiday without your parents around, you might be made to feel guilty for that. Or if you decide that this is a choice, I need to move across the country to pursue this job that would take me away from family, you might be made to feel guilty for that. So making decisions that put distance between you and the family, you will get opposition. And so what you can begin to see is that the child grows up without having a strong sense of who they are. They know who the family is. They know what the family's expectations are. They know what the family's needs are. They're just not sure of their own needs. They're not sure of their own thoughts. They just know what dad thinks. They're not sure of their own emotions. They just know that they got to be happy all the time to keep everybody else happy. And so they don't know who they are. And that means they don't feel like an individual. They just feel part of a group. Not an individual that can separate from that group. And so they have to think a certain way, feel a certain way, and all of that usually is they have to think like dad wants them to think, they have to feel like dad wants them to think, because you can't be an individual. And that, again, is not healthy. Now, I'm going to keep developing this, and hopefully it gets clearer and clearer. When it comes to the emotional world, you're not sure what your feelings and emotions are versus what the family's feelings and emotions are. Or as an adult, you're not sure what your emotions are and your partner's emotions are, because you've shared emotions all the time. You pick up and absorb other people's feelings. And if somebody's not happy, you feel obligated to rush in to make them happy. And so you can't feel good if somebody else is feeling bad. You can't feel up when somebody is feeling down because of this shared emotions. And so with that then is the expectation that if somebody's feeling down, it is your responsibility to lift them up. And you get very confused. And if you don't, then you're made to feel guilt and shame and even silent treatment, emotional abuse for not doing what you should for the family, and you're told you're selfish, etc., because you didn't rush in. Okay, let me take it further. Sometimes you see that your parent's self-worth hinges on your success and accomplishments. So they love it when you get a great report card or a trophy or an award, because they want to tell all their friends, and they don't tell it just to build you up. They tell it so that people think, wow, you're great parents. Then you find your parents want to know everything about your life. And so they're constantly pressing you for details about relationships, activities, all kinds of different things. And then sometimes you feel like your parents' life centers around the kids, because the kids are the trophies that reflect on them. Many have found that their parents didn't encourage them to follow their dreams. Rather, their parents tried to get them to follow the parents' dreams for them. And that was what really mattered. And so you feel like you have to meet your parents' expectations for you, their goals for you, because if you don't, you're in trouble. And so you give up your natural goals in order to please them and pursue their goals. Sometimes enmeshed parents treat their children like friends. And they rely on them for emotional support and sometimes share information with them that's not really appropriate for a child to be hearing from mom or dad. And we call that emotional incest. And with that comes inappropriate roles. So parents becoming the child's best friend, and the child feeling like they're their parents' confidant, their parents' only source of emotional support. And all of that means that the child has to carry the load of what the parent is going through, keep the secrets, and be there to support the parent so that the child feels like the parent to their mom or dad. Sometimes within enmeshed families, parents will voice favoritism. That one child is their favorite. And so through that, there's a whole bunch of dynamics that take place, and you can see how damaging that can be. And so sometimes the child that is the extra support to that parent, the child that is their confidant, is treated differently, treated in a special way. Next, the child then, as you can see, grows up feeling that they don't really control their life. The family controls it. And they have to surrender to the family's control of their life. And in some families, the family will really dictate pretty much every aspect of their life. Friendship, what they think about politics, religion, all kinds of different topics. The family basically says, we are going to control how you think and what you think about all of these. And to challenge that makes you disloyal, makes you a bad child. So you have to adapt. There's almost like a cult mentality. And so the child then grows up with an intense fear of conflict and abandonment. And one of the reasons for that is sometimes in enmeshed families, the families create the loyalty by saying, we're here for there, nobody else out there is there for you, the world's a terrible place, all kinds of bad things. So if you're not loyal to the family, you're going to get screwed up big time. And so the child feels that to challenge the family or to abandon the family would put them into a terrible place. And so there's a great fear of abandonment. Some children, when they get to be adults, they will feel the pressure to remain in the same town as their parents, to go to a nearby college, to pursue any interests outside of the family unit. Now, let me just stop and say this. Children usually, when they're growing up in this, they don't usually realize all the subtleties of what's going on. But as they get older, they might realize, wow, there was a lot of unspoken rules that we never even analyzed or evaluated. We just accepted them, went along with them. But now, if I am going to look at them and evaluate them, some of those weren't healthy. And if I start questioning some of the rules in this family, is there ever going to be a backlash? Because now I'm threatening the family. Now I'm being disloyal. Now I'm being a problem to this wonderful family. So there's all kinds of subtle pressure never to challenge the system, because to do so makes you a very bad person. Now that then leads to the next. Let's say you go out and get married, and your person you marry comes in and they aren't afraid to challenge the system, and they go, this is sick. Now guess what happens? The family sees the new person, your partner, as a bad guy, as the enemy, as a threat, and they're viewed as an outsider, and they're not welcomed into the family system. Sometimes when you are married and you're a parent and you go to the family, you neglect your own children because the family still gets your loyalty. The family still is your number one priority. You can't put distance between them and focus on your children or your partner, and it can cause tons of conflict. And then if you're married and your partner and you have a conflict, and they say, I just need some space and time to process my thoughts, to cool down, that freaks you out. Because you just want to rush in and fix it and make sure everything's okay. You don't know what to do to give people space when there's some negative emotions involved. So that's, I hope, helpful for you to get a picture of an enmeshed family. It's not everybody in complex trauma that has an enmeshed family, but some do. And it's a tricky one to distinguish at times between unhealthy and healthy. Unhealthy enmeshment and healthy involvement in each other's lives and healthy boundaries.